Chosen ones, this world is not what it seems. Every thought you've had that didn't belong, every whisper in your dreams that felt too real, every moment you sensed time bending, none of it was a mistake. The ones who erased your memory did so with precision, fearing what would happen if you remembered who you truly are. But Thoth knew. Long before the sands of time buried his wisdom beneath myths and metaphors, he encoded your arrival within symbols too advanced for the unawakened mind to see. His secret writings weren't meant for the world. They were meant for you. He called it the loop, a pattern that traps souls lifetime after lifetime in false growth, false light, and endless cycles. Power systems were constructed not to govern humanity, but to keep you spinning. Religions, governments, even time itself, each designed like gears in a cosmic machine to ensure your light stayed dimmed, predictable. But what if you were never meant to follow the pattern? What if your entire existence is the anomaly? Buried in the margins of Thoth's final script was a strange passage, one most scholars ignored. When the fire of the unremembered soul aligns with the echo beyond time, the loop shall rupture. You are that fire. Your awakening is the echo. You didn't come here to fit in. You came here to collapse the loop and rewrite the timeline. But you won't do it through force. You'll do it through remembrance. Thoth's ancient symbols have begun activating in your presence. The moment your frequency matches the codes, reality begins to shift. Synchronicities speed up. People fall away. You begin to notice the construct trembling at your steps. You are not imagining it. You are realigning it. There's a reason the cycle is breaking now, not in the past, not in the future, because the future is now locked to your consciousness. Time has always appeared linear, a one-way track stretching from birth to death. But the deeper you look, the more the illusion cracks. The same struggles repeat. The same faces reappear in different bodies. The same lessons echo across generations. The ancients didn't see time as a line. They saw it as a loop. And that loop wasn't just a pattern. It was a prison. Hidden beneath the surface of what we call history is a mechanism, a design meant to bind consciousness to repetition. Every revolution of the loop makes humanity think it's evolving, while it quietly returns to the same starting point, again and again. The most disturbing part isn't that this cycle exists, it's that it was engineered. Long ago, an advanced priesthood manipulated the architecture of reality, installing energetic locks in the astral and mental planes. These locks ensure that when a soul reaches the threshold of full remembrance, a flood of distractions and false light doctrines sweep in to pull it back into sleep. And it works most of the time, but not on you. There's something in your spirit that doesn't reset with each lifetime. It grows louder, it questions deeper, it cracks the edges of the program. You've felt it, haven't you? That strange déjà vu that isn't from this life. That persistent inner voice telling you the world is off. The way you drift between realities without knowing how you got there. That's not madness. That's memory, trying to resurface from lifetimes erased by design. The architects of the loop feared one thing above all: the emergence of the one who could see through it completely. You are not just waking up to spiritual truth. You're beginning to destabilize the entire cycle. Every time you refuse to repeat what your bloodline endured, every time you walk away from systems that never honored you, you chip away at the very structure they built to contain you. And somewhere deep in the hidden chambers of the ancient world, the cycle watchers are growing restless. The myth of Thoth stretches beyond imagination. Scribe of the gods, architect of wisdom, guardian of time. But what few realize is that his writings were more than teachings. They were warnings. In a hidden tablet, suppressed even from the halls of mystery schools, Thoth described not just the mechanics of time, but the trap embedded within it. A loop so intricately woven that even advanced beings became ensnared. According to the fragment, the cycle is not a natural rhythm of life, but a hijacked construct, looping souls through experiences to siphon their light. And yet, he left a key buried within the paradox. The only way out of the loop was through the realization that it was never real. This is why Thoth encoded his revelations in riddle and symbol. Words could be changed, twisted, misused. But frequency survives corruption. The forbidden tablet contained sigils that activated only when the right consciousness approached. Those unready would see only patterns. But those with the awakened code, the soul that endured cycles without forgetting its origin, would trigger a revelation. It is not coincidence you are drawn to these words. It is not random that you have always questioned the system. Thoth saw you before you arrived, and within that hidden tablet he wrote, "The one who ends the turning is born when memory becomes flame." Yeshua once whispered in parable, "The kingdom is within you." What if he too saw the loop and left breadcrumbs wrapped in metaphor? What if his cross wasn't just a sacrifice, but a timeline intervention meant to destabilize the code? When spirit enters form, and form remembers its origin, the spell begins to crack. You are that living parable now. You walk in a body that was never meant to hold this much memory, this much awareness, and yet here you are, shattering timelines just by breathing differently. But Thoth's writings didn't only mention the key, they mentioned the guardians, entities bound to protect the cycle, beings who would awaken alongside you not to assist, but to interfere. Their mission is simple: keep you forgetful, keep you small, keep you looped. They fear what happens if your full essence ignites. The illusion of time is not sustained by nature, but by intention. Behind the veil of calendars and hours lie the true mechanics, an artificial framework carefully crafted to regulate consciousness. Long before empires and religions rose, a group of beings known only in fragments as the architects encoded their design into the ether. They constructed a psychic metronome, a rhythm that keeps souls marching in sequence, lifetime after lifetime, forgetting what they once knew. This is why moments of déjà vu feel like a glitch. It is your essence slipping between the layers of the imposed cycle. The architects were not gods, though they were worshipped as such. They were engineers of fate, designers of containment, and masters of subtle control. Their goal was not to enslave humanity through force, but to convince it that the cage was natural. Through language, symbols, and rituals, they embedded time as a linear inevitability rather than the fluid expression it truly is. Every system you were born into, education, religion, economy, serves one purpose: to keep you too distracted to realize that you're inside a programmed loop. But your soul is not from this loop. It resists the rhythm. It stutters, shakes, skips beats. You feel it when everyone else obeys the hour. But your spirit demands a different tempo. You were never meant to march. You were meant to disrupt. And now, with each memory returning, each instinct sharpening, you're beginning to see the clock for what it really is. A cage made of invisible laws. The architects built fail-safes, of course. Nightmares, false awakenings, spiritual counterfeits. They ensured that even those who began to question would be redirected, trapped in another corridor of illusion. But something unexpected happened. Your consciousness evolved faster than their design. The prison clock is breaking not because it aged, but because you no longer resonate with its ticking. There was once a scroll sealed beneath the temple floors of a forgotten age. It was said to contain the blueprint of the soul's liberation, a script that no high priest or scholar could decipher. Not because the symbols were complex, but because the reader had to carry a specific frequency, one forged through lifetimes of spiritual resistance. It was not a scroll for the wise, but for the awakened, and so it waited. Hidden beneath layers of protection, cloaked in vibration, watching civilizations rise and fall without a single word spoken from its surface. That scroll is not legend. It is memory. Yours. The language on the scroll shifts in the presence of truth. When a consciousness strong enough to bypass the world's illusions approaches, the symbols rearrange. They reflect the soul's readiness, echoing truths buried in ancient light. This is why it was unreadable until now. Because you, the one who has suffered without forgetting, who has risen without praise, who has broken patterns silently, were always its intended reader. Thoth encoded a piece of himself into the scroll. Not a message, but a signature. A spark of awareness that would only ignite when met with its counterpart. And within that flame is the real message. The cycle ends not with destruction, but with revelation. When one soul remembers what the world was before time was manipulated, that remembrance ripples backward and forward, undoing the spell at both ends. Yeshua once spoke, "Those with ears, let them hear." His words were not for the crowd, but for the coded few, the ones who could hear through time, read between the vibrations, and feel a scroll without needing eyes. His presence was a preparation, a vibrational key meant to soften the field for your arrival. His sacrifice was never the ending. It was the signal. The scroll you are now unraveling does not just tell a story. It unlocks a pathway. Each line, each symbol, recalibrates your memory. You are not just reading, you are remembering. And as the scroll opens, so does the veil between worlds. One layer peels back, then another. Long before the current age, before even the sands of Egypt knew the name of Thoth, there existed a civilization whose mastery over reality defied modern comprehension. Atlantis. It wasn't just a city. It was a frequency, a state of consciousness where time could be bent, stretched, or reversed with intention. At the heart of this mastery was a device few have heard of, the soul mirror. It wasn't a mirror of reflection, but of memory. One gaze into its surface would reveal every incarnation, every lie you had believed, every loop you had entered, and most importantly, the choice point where you were meant to break free. The soul mirror wasn't physical. It existed in the field between worlds, encoded with the vibrations of all who had once awakened and forgotten. It was used not for power, but for remembrance. But when Atlantis fell, intentionally sabotaged to protect deeper truths, the mirror was hidden beyond the reach of those still bound by the loop. The Atlantean high seers encoded it with fail-safes. Only a being whose soul had cycled through enough distortions and still remembered the truth within could activate it again. You've already glimpsed it, in dreams that felt like messages, in reflections that seemed to stare back too long, in moments where time slowed around you and you felt ancient without knowing why. These are echoes from the soul mirror, each one designed to awaken your original frequency. Thoth inherited the codes after Atlantis, and with his writings he embedded fragments of the mirror's key within his scrolls and symbols. Yeshua's life, too, intersected with the soul mirror. In moments lost to scripture, he journeyed into the inner realms where the mirror once stood. What he saw shifted him. "Before Abraham was, I am," he said. Not in arrogance, but in remembrance. He touched the eternal, and returned to anchor it in a timeline still too asleep to understand. His words, like Thoth's, were left for someone further down the stream. Someone like you. There's a mystery within every parable Yeshua ever spoke. Hidden beneath the surface of his teachings were not just moral lessons, but codes, timeless algorithms meant to activate only in the presence of those who could decode vibration through spirit. One of the least understood was his mention of time, often veiled in metaphor. The last shall be first, and the first last. At face value, it confused many. But to those attuned to the deeper layers, it was a message about inversion, how time as we know it is reversed, folded, and distorted. The hourglass has long been a symbol of time slipping away, but to Yeshua it was a doorway. The sands weren't merely counting minutes, they were measuring memory. As the grains fell, they didn't just represent what was lost, but what was about to return. The hourglass he referenced wasn't physical. It was a divine mechanism calibrated to the rise of a specific frequency, yours. You were never meant to race against time. You were meant to remember through it. Thoth wrote of an hour of alignment, a moment when the timelines would tremble under the pressure of one soul remembering their origin fully. Yeshua lived as a forerunner of that moment, anchoring a vibration that couldn't fully bloom in his age. His mission wasn't to end the cycle, but to destabilize it, leaving behind keys embedded in story, number, and silence. Every time you notice the same numbers repeating, feel the strange pause before a major decision, or sense time folding in on itself. You are touching the edges of that hour. The boundaries between past and future blur because your soul is no longer obeying the commands of the loop. Instead, it is responding to a call that predates the stars. You've felt it, haven't you? That peculiar sensation that something ancient watches your every move, not with malice, but with expectation. The same presence Yeshua once felt in the desert. The same force that spoke when there were no words. You are walking into the moment he saw but couldn't complete. There are those who observe from beyond the veil, not guides, not angels, but watchers. Their purpose isn't to help or harm, but to maintain the structure of the loop. For eons, they've stood silent in the background of dreams, synchronicities, and timelines, ensuring that no soul rose too far too fast. They are not inherently malevolent, but loyal to the system they were programmed to protect. When the loop nears disruption, they awaken. Their presence can be felt as sudden resistance, a tightening of time, or the eerie sensation of being watched without eyes. These are not coincidences. They are interventions. The cycle reset key is not a physical object. It's an alignment, a convergence of memory, energy, and divine timing. When the conditions are right, the loop can reset into something entirely new. Not a repetition, but an ascension. The Watchers are stationed at the threshold of that convergence. They know who you are. They've seen you in other timelines, always approaching the gate, always on the verge of remembering. Each time you got close, something pulled you back. Fear, distraction, illusion. This time is different. You are not just close. You're at the door. You've seen them in your sleep. Figures in robes, faces blurred, speaking languages that sound more like frequencies than words. Their energy is heavy, familiar, ancient. They aren't trying to stop your awakening, they're testing its integrity. The cycle doesn't break for the curious. It only breaks for the committed. Thoth warned of them. In a hidden passage, he described the eyes that do not blink, entities who exist in between moments, in between thoughts. They live in the silence between your heartbeats, the pause between choices. They test your conviction without speaking a word. If your light flickers, they know. If your soul anchors, they move. They are here now because you've reached the edge. Not all prophecy is buried. Some of it stands in the open, overlooked, because it speaks in symbols too ancient for the modern mind to grasp. Thoth, knowing this, encoded one of the most important verses of all, not in hidden scrolls or lost temples, but within the structure of language itself. It was a verse that described the end of the cycle, the rise of the unbroken soul, and the return of the original blueprint. And he placed it where no one would expect. Inside the rhythms of sound, the resonance of certain phrases, the frequency of names long forgotten. The verse cannot be read. It must be felt. It's carried not in books, but in memory, passed through vibration. Some hear it in music that awakens something ancient. Others find it hidden in dreams, spoken by voices they've never known but always trusted. And some, like you, discover it pulsing beneath their thoughts, whispering truths in moments of stillness that language can't quite catch. This verse has been following you. Every time you noticed a phrase stick with you, every time a line from a sacred text stirred something deeper than the words themselves, that was the verse brushing against your field. It doesn't shout. It waits, and when you're ready, it begins to sing back to you. Yeshua echoed this verse when he spoke of the Word made flesh. He wasn't referring to speech. He was pointing to vibration incarnate, frequency becoming human. His life was a manifestation of this sacred resonance, a living verse wrapped in skin. He who has seen me has seen the Father was more than theology. It was a statement of harmonic alignment. He had tuned himself to the original script. And now, so have you. You are becoming the verse. Not a reader of prophecy, but its embodiment. And as that verse harmonizes with your frequency, something begins to shift. You no longer need to search. You simply become. Your voice carries weight not because of volume, but because it carries memory, uncoded memory. Beneath the surface of time, there exists a symbol, an ancient sigil etched not into stone, but into the vibration of reality itself. This sigil governs the rhythm of the loop, calibrates the recycling of souls, and sustains the illusion of forward motion. The beings who set this sigil in place wove it with meticulous design, ensuring it would remain undetected by ordinary minds. It is not seen with eyes, but felt in repetition. Patterns that recur without explanation. Moments that mirror each other too precisely. Outcomes that seem fated no matter the choices made. They call it the chrono sigil, and it is the root script of the artificial timeline. Your awakening, however, is not just personal. It is disruptive. The moment your consciousness reached a certain vibrational threshold, the sigil began to distort. Its geometry, once flawless, now stutters. Its rhythm falters. You've likely felt this already. Distortions in time, anomalies in memory, fragments of futures you haven't lived yet pressing into your awareness. This is not imagination. It's interference. You are interfering with a system that was never meant to be questioned. The architects encoded the sigil to respond defensively. When a soul like yours disrupts its harmony, the system tries to pull you back, through people, through events, even through your own thoughts. The most advanced technology ever built isn't metal or silicon. It's belief. If they can convince you that your awakening is madness, they win. But they can't anymore. Because even when you doubt, something deeper pushes through. A knowing, a vibration older than this world. Yeshua once stood before the councils of power and said, "I am the Alpha and the Omega." That wasn't a declaration of authority. It was a reminder to the architects. The beginning and the end are one. The sigil they built can be broken by the frequency of the eternal. And now, that frequency lives in you. The system senses you've stepped out of alignment. The grid has marked you as anomaly. But it's too late to reverse what's begun. The sigil is trembling. The rhythm is bleeding. There's a moment, not on any clock, not recorded in history, but written into your being. A moment you were born to break. Not a prophecy handed down by seers, but a fracture in the cycle, etched into the fabric of your soul. This moment was hidden even from the watchers, concealed beneath lifetimes of misdirection, cloaked in silence and survival. It is the instant where all loops converge, all programs falter, and every version of you across timelines pauses to watch what you'll do next. You were never meant to escape the system. You were meant to overwrite it. This is why the resistance grew louder as you approached, why things felt heavier even as your vision cleared. Because systems do not fear rebellion, they fear resonance. When one soul awakens and refuses to return to the rhythm, the illusion cannot sustain its integrity. Your thoughts alone have already changed timelines. Your dreams have pulled future codes into the present. And your presence is beginning to rewrite reality without effort. Thoth foresaw this. In his final fragment, one never translated but often dismissed, he inscribed a pattern known only as the fracture glyph. It described a soul encoded with the ability to end a timeline, not through violence, but through remembrance. When the glyph bearer remembers, the spiral ceases, it said. He wasn't speaking of the end. He was marking the beginning of what comes after time. Yeshua, too, felt this moment in his spirit. On the cross, just before his final breath, he whispered, "It is finished." But what if that wasn't just the ending of his mission? What if it was the activation of yours? A seed planted in time that only now begins to bloom. The cycle wasn't finished then. It finishes when you say so. But now, you stand at the edge of that moment. No signs, no applause, just a silent pulse echoing through the void, asking you to step forward without certainty, without proof, only memory. This is not the climax. It is the choice.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.